Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Jenny Halpin, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Daniel Hodgson. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of Sacre-Cœur from Glen Iris, Victoria. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem.
Soil and well
If you require a seat, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament. Flowers of the forest, wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Percy Colston Horatio Caines. Percy Caines was born in 1894 in the Melbourne suburb of Richmond. He was the youngest of 7 children born to John Caines, a carter, and his wife, Matilda Jane. Percy was educated at Northcote State School and the Working Men's College in Melbourne. When he was 14 years old, he joined the Royal Australian Naval Reserve. He was still serving with them when the First World War broke out in 1914. For a time, he continued in the reserve as a stoker on troop transport ships such as Ulysses and Burrell. But on the 8th of November 1915, he joined the Australian Imperial Force and was allocated to the 15th Reinforcement of the 8th Infantry Battalion as a private. He commenced a short period of training in Australia and in March 1916 embarked for active service on the troop ship Wiltshire. In Egypt, the AIF was being expanded and reorganised. Caines was transferred to the newly formed 59th Battalion and was reunited with his cousin, Frank South. In June 1916, Private Caines and his comrades arrived in the French city of Marseille and were immediately sent north towards the border of France and Belgium, which had once been the site of bitter fighting. Now comparatively quiet, this area of the front became known as the nursery sector, where new troops were introduced to life in the trenches. After only a few days in the front lines, Caines' unit was called into action near the village of Fromelles. It was here that he would take part in his first and last major action of the war. The battle was intended as a feint to prevent German reserves from moving south to take part in the Battle of the Somme. The attack was against strongly fortified enemy positions near the Aubert Ridge. A 7-hour bombardment was designed to destroy the German front line and allow the Allied troops to take their objectives largely unopposed. But the artillery had been almost useless, and it had alerted the enemy to an impending attack. As they jumped the parapet, Allied troops were quickly cut down by murderous machine gun and artillery fire from German troops who had taken cover during the bombardment. Though some men made it to their objective, they were quickly forced to withdraw and were again caught under heavy fire. By the time the battle was called off, the 5th Division alone had suffered over 5,500 casualties. This attack has been remembered as the worst 24 hours in Australia's entire history. Among the casualties was Private Percy Caines, killed in action. His cousin Frank South was also killed during the fighting. After receiving news of his death, the Caines family posted a memorial notice in the Age newspaper. It read, "He never shunned his country's call. What happy hours we once enjoyed, how sweet their memories still. But they have left an aching void this world can never fill. Till we meet again." Caines' final resting place was never uncovered. Today, he is commemorated among the missing and unknown at VC Corner, Australia Cemetery in France. Private Percy Caines was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Percy Colston Horatio Caines, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
Central Party, shoulder, arms.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Central Party, raise arms.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget.
Careful, body, and words, turn. Careful, body, quick, march.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.